What's up, A-Pushers? It's Mr. Imatsu coming with you with a video about how to take the multiple choice part of the exam. So first, before we begin, there's kind of an assumption that you already have watched this video and taken some notes on this video that came from College Board. And once again, this is directly from College Board, and I have found these quite useful. They were released in the 2023 school year at the end of for the 2023 exam. So they're quite relevant, and I really picked up a couple of items. So please make sure that you have taken some detailed notes. And if you have any questions about some of the strategies that she talks about, please let me know. In addition, this actually is part of a series on advanced placement. If you go to the YouTube series, there's a playlist area, and on the playlist there are items for all of our classes, all the APs actually, and they actually again released this in 2023. So that's where I got this video, and so there's the video. There's a playlist of all the different other sessions that they have, anywhere from how to take certain exams and the different components of the exam, all the way down to actually focusing on the content of each period. So that might be a resource that you'd like to use. I feel the content obviously looks a little bit long and could be a little overly detailed, and you're doing a lot of that good work inside of class anyways. But I have found that these short videos about the test components and how to approach them have been quite helpful. And the last thing I want to say before we get a little further into this is a lot of these strategies that we're discussing can help you on a lot of different standardized exams that have multiple choice involved. So think of the SAT, think of the ACT, think of all these different exams that you may have to take in the future, whether it be for college or for different careers or opportunities. I really think that you could utilize some of these strategies, and I'm going to add to some of the strategies that she discussed. Another thing I just want to remind you of, as another resource, is under tips, tricks, and resources on the website. There is a College Board and exam description. When you go on to this, if you scroll down, I apologize for not having this kind of loaded earlier. But somewhere down here, I believe, there's a practice exam. So probably go there. It is. So starting on page 247 on this document, there's a practice exam. You notice this was produced in 2019. They have yet to, I believe, re-release any type of other exam description. By 2019, they had kind of settled on what the test had been. Some of you guys may be reminded that in class I've discussed that in 2016 there was a change to the test, and for multiple years there were revisions of the test. And so in 2019, things kind of settled regarding how the test was created, what they're exactly looking for the content of the test. And so with that being said, this is a reliable document that has gone. So this kind of gives you another idea of some other things that you can practice. I know that she discusses there's a couple of items that you can download you can practice with her, which you feel free to go ahead and do so. But this is also an exam. Also, your review book has multiple choice questions at the end as well. So multiple resources for you to practice these strategies. So this document is under, I apologize, under our review document. So under period 9 review down here, let me move this thing out of the way. So down here under period 9 review, there is test taking advice and strategies. And we're just going to go ahead and look at that document. You have access to this document. Once again, this kind of talks about preparation and kind of the mental aspect of preparing for a standardized test, especially if it's early in the morning, which our test will be in the morning as for APUS history will be at usually 8:30 in the morning. So let's go ahead and talk about, this also has a document that, can give you quickly the test format to remind you exactly what you're going into. But this is kind of some strategies. I'll kind of discuss them in order and kind of give you an example on the document of the test. So first of all, look at the sourcing first. So in this case, the sourcing right here is the Declaratory Act passed by the British Parliament in 1766. So immediately my brain kind of looks at the time period. In 1766, we know that's in period 3. We know that ends in period 3 begins in 1754. So I know this is during the what we call Revolutionary period in the early parts of the United States. The fact that's being passed by the British Parliament, knowing a little bit of history, we know that they kind of controlled or began to try to control the colonies, which would lead to the Colonies Rebellion. And we know that one of these acts probably is some of these different acts that happened during that time. So just based off of looking at the source, I'm already framing my brain to knowing what is going to be going on. Um, Go ahead and look at the questions using your marking strategies. And so when I talk about marking strategies, I talk about, in my opinion, I would probably have circled or underlined. Probably have underlined. We discussed what a circle and underline. An underline is the most important information, and a circle is a key term. So in this case, it's really telling us the word most directly. I might circle the word enactment, law. So I'm just going to try to focus on those items. So that's what I mean by marking the question using your circles around key terms and using your underlines under important information, or how it's kind of question might be framing. If it says causes, you probably want to underline and probably even circle causes, right? So kind of frame your brain to knowing what exact historical thinking skill they're using, or what the question is directly asking. Um, After doing that, after using market strategies, don't misread the questions. Also read the stimulus if you really think so. Some students have found that actually reading the stimulus might help them. I encourage students to actually read the questions all together and and go through the answers and try to eliminate answers based off just the sourcing information. You're going to often find that in these multiple choice exams, that there are two really like are wrong. That it's like really poorly written answers, and in one way, either by content or by idea. There's always going to be two answers that are really wrong, and then the next two are going to be really close, and it's going to feel like they're both almost right. And so your job is to eliminate the two incorrect answers and kind of get this probability down to 50% rather than 25%. And that's kind of the game that we're playing in a lot of these standardized tests. So just from an overall test setting experience, if we can read the question and we can begin eliminating certain answers, when we go back to the stimulus, when we actually read the stimulus, it may be easier to identify which one of the two is the incorrect answer or the right answer, rather than trying to get from all four. Okay. So again, eliminate two wrong answers by crossing them out. I tell students that sometimes what you can do is just put like a cross out on the actual letter. So let's say A and C, you'd put like a slash through it. Some students have said, what I like to do is actually cross out the entire entire answer. So it just eliminates it from my brain. So in that case, it would be all crossed out. And that way the brain kind of just focuses on the two existing answers. So if possible, if you can't, it is what it is. We're just trying to do our best on reducing the probabilities and put the odds in our favor, right? So this came from actually the AP exam. So again, this actually came directly from her, and this this video about the multiple choice exam that was released by College Board, and they talk about turning the answers into a true/false statement. So in this case, as you practice with her, was it true that this most directly contributed to the enactment law, or is it false that this one did? And so you're basically creating a true/false statement. That helps some students. Some other students kind of find it redundant and weird, but I definitely think you should try it, especially in the first few exams. In this class, it's all about kind of exposing yourself to kind of new experiences and new ways to approach information, and hopefully, just give it a try and be open to it. And notice that the first couple times you do something, it's probably not going to feel really good, or kind of feel a little weird, but then it becomes a habit. I like using the strategies of squiggly, crossouts, and circles for the correct answer. So again, I would be slashing maybe letters A and C, and then if it's B and D, I'd put a squiggly on it so that I know that that's already been done. Kind of focus my brain on those squigglies, and then I would circle the correct answer, either B or letter D. Start the hard ones and come back to them at the end. This is kind of an overall approach. When you guys are taking the individual exams in the class compared to the comprehensive end of year exam that gives you credit, the actual one done by College Board, that's kind of even more of a game. In this case, what you want to do is it's kind of a time saving. So this is really for the actual exam itself because it's timed. Our tests will be timed in this class so that we can start feeling kind of the pressure of the time. And so this strategy will eventually be helpful at the beginning of the year. We're kind of getting you guys ready and warming you guys up to this whole experience. So there are a certain number of test questions that are going to be hard. And this is true of every exam. This is how they differentiate between really good scores and really poor scores, right? Is by making these really hard questions. And the students and individuals that are able to get these hard questions right are the ones that get the highest scores. So the goal is kind of not to spend so much time on these hard ones when you're in a time setting. And that's what students tend to do. Rather than making sure they get all the easy questions right, they might spend a long time kind of reading the hard ones. So if you sense there's a hard one, just put a star and come at the end and ensure that you get the easy ones done rather than rushing at the very end and like getting the easy ones at the very end wrong because you're simply rushing because you spent so much time on a hard one that might have been early in the exam. Okay. Um, at the end of set of each question, so stimulus, try the hard question one more time. If you're done. Oh, this is not going at the very end, but like if you're done with the entire stimulus. So let's say you have a question here. This came from a student last year and kind of recommended it to class, and a lot of students actually agree that was a cool strategy. So let's say that you come to question number one is hard, and you answer two, you answer three, you answer four. Well, before going into the next question and next stimulus, again, this would be called stimulus, some kind of usually primary or secondary source that is about the information. After the stimulus, before you go to the next one, kind of try to go back to that number one, before you go in this case to number five because of the new sets of questions for the new stimulus. So that's something rather than moving on, because then you may have to reread this again later, which would again take a little bit more time. Answer every question, even guess. There aren't any guessing penalties. There used to be guessing penalties both for some of these tests like the SAT and also the AP tests, but they no longer had those, what they call guessing penalty. I won't go into it, but you actually used to get penalized if you would bubble in an answer and got it wrong compared to just leaving it blank. I feel like C and D tend to be the answers more often than these tests for some reason. It's just a luck thing and just an observation. So another thing to think about, especially on the test, since it is a time setting and you not only have to like think about the questions, but you have to answer it. The idea is that, after circling these letters that are correct, let's say again, we thought like letter D was correct in this one and letter B was correct. And you put that circle rather than like after circling it, going to your exam over here and like actually filling in the letter B for your answer sheet, just keep that to the very end. And instead of going, okay, D, and then going over here and bubbling with your pencil on your paper on your desk, D, and then C, and then C. And again, think about this for other timed exams that you might have to take in the future. A, and then C, and then C. What I'm thinking is that at the very end, if you have like, if you can time yourself to understand how much time you need, but let's say there's 3.5 minutes left and you're actually done with the exam, you just go back over here and you go A, D, A, D, A. This is a strategy that I use when you'd have to use really grade tests by hand, way back in the day. So a lot of times we had the things that were done by hand. And as a teacher, right, you'd have 4 or 5 of these answers and you kind of have that pattern in your head. I think also kind of grouping them in 4 or 5, like the stimulus does, prevents you from accidentally skipping one. I know some of you guys may have done this where you're bubbling and you're bubbling and then suddenly you skip a bubble and suddenly you're answering number 5, for actually number 6 because you skipped number 5, and then the answer for number 6 is on number 7, and so everything just kind of starts getting messed up, and then you look back and you go, oh no, and all these issues start happening. So I'm thinking also, if you're not going back and forth and you're doing it in sets of 5 and then sets of 5 and then sets of 5, maybe reduces the chance for making that type of mistake. So we'll have individual lessons about, the different other parts, as you can see. We'll have one about a short answer and everything else, but really this focus is on the multiple choice questions, since that's what you'll be doing for period 1 and 2. So that's just kind of some strategies to think about. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck on your next exam. Take care, guys.